Welcome to Fandom
and Wellness,
a podcast about the complex relationship between fandom and mental health.
Disclaimer, we are not psychiatrists or psychologists. We are just fangirls with a vested interest in mental health. I'm Arkeida.
I'm Jenny.
And I'm Danielle.
And this week, we're talking about Moana.
Moana!
I am Moana!
Let's get into this.
Yeah.
I watched this movie a lot, just prefacing this.
Good.
Yeah, I was
it's
like...
so good.
I was like, Arkeida, have you watched Moana yesterday? And you were like, yeah, I watch it like every 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Literally, I
good.
watch it every 2 weeks. And Disney Plus has now made it easier for me to watch it because it was on Netflix and they took it off. So I had to find it every single time.
It's officially the first thing we each watched, right?
Yeah, on Disney Plus.
No.
Oh, no, well, maybe not Arkeida.
What'd you watch?
I was getting a little nostalgic. I mean, I did watch The Mandalorian.
Bitch, your middle name is nostalgic.
Yeah, what's new?
Whatever. I watched Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen. That movie is wild, by the way. I don't know, the plotline was all over the place. But back to Moana.
Okay. So, obviously, one of my favorite things about the movie is the songs and the music.
Yes.
So I just wanted to start with that and ask what your favorite songs were.
I mean, I regularly listen to this soundtrack while I am sewing. It is so good. My favorite song is Know Who You Are. Mm-hmm. I'll get into why later when we're talking about Te Fiti and Te Ka. But I love it so much when she's walking through the water to hand back the heart. It's wonderful.
Shit, I might have to say that that's also my favorite song now that I think about it.
Oh my god.
Are you two twins?
I mean, there are so many it's really hard to pick a favorite song, but that one just I don't know, it touches me in a really emotional way.
Yeah, I realized that's probably my favorite song now that I think about it. I guess I never realized it was a song.
It's so short.
It's a very short song, right? Is that why?
Yes,
maybe that's why.
It's literally, I think, less than 10 lines. So it's
right. But I do really love How Far I'll Go, which is classic, and We Know the Way, which is really going on an adventure kind of song that I really love listening to.
Yeah.
Akita?
So my favorite song, which we had to look up because I thought it was something else, it's I Am Moana /
Do you mean
Song of the
Answers.
Moana! I'm sorry, I'm such a bad singer.
So am I, but that's okay.
I don't know. I love that. That's honestly my favorite song in the entire movie. Granted, I love all the songs, but I think that scene specifically, and it's the one where she's ready to give up on the boat, is one that I have felt so many times and that resonated with me that I was like, oh my god, this song. Where it's her grandma comes and visits her and is like, I'll support you no matter what you choose to do. And I'm like, that's my grandma.
Yeah, I think that's my second favorite song in the movie. Good picks, guys. Good
picks.
Is there a bad pick, though?
Right, exactly. That's what, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Shiny. They're not even that. That one was still good. That was
it's still
good.
It's very unique. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and Maui's song, also amazing.
Okay,
we'll talk about those in a little bit.
Yeah. I love Moana as a character in general. Because I especially love how she's established from the beginning, even as a child, to be adventurous and empathetic, which I think are traits that she continues to have throughout the movie.
Yeah, I somehow, I've seen this movie a bunch of times at this point, and I don't know how, but I somehow totally blanked on the entire beginning of the movie where the ocean chooses her. And I was watching it and I was like, I don't remember this scene.
Maybe you missed it. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a very cute scene, but if you don't realize what's happening, that's what's happening.
I think I was just all right, there's this Moana baby on the beach, playing with turtles and stuff. Let me look away from the screen for a second while it's happening. I think it's the first time I ever actually watched that scene, and I'm like, oh, this is what the entire basis of the movie is. Okay.
Also, you have the context now for what it actually means.
Yep.
Yeah. After watching the movie entirely already.
Yeah, many times. Yeah, I love that, like, the grandma's telling all the kids in the village the stories, and she's the only one who's, like, very, very into it and wide-eyed and, like, wants to hear more, whereas, like, all the other kids are crying and scared.
Exactly. And it was so... to have her save the turtle, the baby turtle in the beginning, and, like, I'm just realizing this now, do what she wants to do. Like, she's living vicariously through the turtle.
Aww.
Right? Because the turtle can go into the sea, but she can't.
Turtles are my favorite animal, just so you guys know. I like turtles.
Okay.
I like turtles.
Good to know. And like you said, the grandma is the only one who's, like, telling these stories, is because she's the only one not afraid of the chief, you know?
She's his mom!
You know, like, after, like, Moana gets injured, and she's like, are you gonna tell him? And she's like, I'm his mom, I don't have to.
Bitch, I don't have to do anything.
I tell him what to do.
No.
I hate when, like, men in movies use, like, their imposingness to, like, strike fear, especially if they're supposed to be a good guy, you know?
Yeah.
It's so annoying because he does that, Maui does that.
Yeah, like, to me it almost felt out of character for her dad to be, like, yelling at her and, like, physically moving her, which, I mean, I guess is why she looks so shook.
That's why she's so shook.
when he, like, moved her, when she, like, wanted to, when she, like, picked up the paddle at first.
Right.
It just seemed, like, out of character to me.
Well, I don't know. There are instances in this movie where there is physical force used, and I'm like, ooh. Like, when Maui constantly throws her off the boat, it's used as, like, it's seen as comedic, but I don't think it's that funny.
I don't think it's he's literally throwing her out. Like, if she didn't know how to swim, and if the ocean didn't choose her, she would be dead.
Right?
It's essentially what Maui's trying to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. We don't really see that much of her dad anyway, like, other than his fear of what's beyond the reef, and like, it is, like, it's not justified, but he certainly has good reason to be scared of it.
Yeah.
Because his best friend died beyond the reef, and he definitely blames himself for it.
Right.
I'm not going to compare the whole movie to Little Mermaid, but definitely when he yells at her about having to listen to her, it does sound like King Triton yelling at Ariel.
Right. Okay, yeah.
That scene is very reminiscent of that.
It is. I do agree with that. Okay, so in my head, he went out beyond the reef and his friend died. But now that he's kind of the chief of Motunui, like, there's nothing around, but I'm like, they were voyagers in the past. At what point did they stop? Because obviously his father would have been Grandma Tala's husband or partner. So, like, was he also a voyager? Like, when did they stop?
Well, it's confusing because it wasn't 1,000 years ago.
Was it 1,000 years ago? Did they say that?
Well, hasn't Maui been on that island for 1,000 years?
I'm talking about the islanders, not Maui.
No,
Maui
I know. I thought that the islanders stopped when Te Fiti turned into Te Ka.
Oh.
I thought that's what the grandma said.
Yes, that makes more sense. Okay.
Because, like, then Te Ka started being, like, threatening.
Right,
and it was too scary for the Voyagers to go out anymore.
Right. Okay.
So it's like, I guess it was just something that, like, was passed down and only the chiefs knew about. That there were these boats for the past Voyagers.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's based on a true historical event called the Long Pause, where for 2,000 years, the Polynesians stopped voyaging for that long, and as far as I know, no one knows the reason. So I guess this is, like, this might be part of the lore of why they stopped.
Okay. Yeah, so then it's like interesting to, like, comment on, I guess, the dad's fear, right? Because it's like, we don't want to be insensitive to that culture that, you know, may have good reasoning to stop, but at the same time, it's not good to live in fear.
It's not good to live in fear, but I get it. He has valid reasons for it. And it's like, he also was Okay, so I feel, in my head, I see it as,
he has
her.
his valid reasons for it. In this movie, he has his valid reasons for it, not necessarily valid reasons for her.
Yes. No, okay, so what I'm trying to say is he has his valid reason for it because at her age, he sees himself in her and how rebellious and adventurous she is. And because he was like that, he put not only his life at risk, but his friend's life at risk, knowing that they weren't as good as voyagers as they thought they were, because at the same time, like, if this hasn't happened in 1,000, 2,000 years, not everyone is experienced in voyaging beyond the reef because it is so tumultuous. So, like, he's just trying to be very and essentially overprotective of his daughter Moana. I'm not saying that it's right, but I'm saying I do understand where he's coming from and what fear is keeping him from wanting to go beyond the reef.
Unpopular opinion. It's not his dad's fault that his friend died. His friend decided to get on the boat himself, knowing he wasn't a voyager either.
Of course, that's not how grief works. Of course, right?
Sure.
Because
sure, but even the chief's wife is like, he couldn't save his friend. He wants to save you. Like, his wife should be able to like be like, his friend made that choice. Like,
I know,
that's true.
But I mean, in the process of grief, that's not how you see things. Like, from the person that is grieving, that is not the perspective they are going to be seeing.
Oftentimes, people who are grieving will think about how they can have prevented a death like that, right?
Yes.
So that's definitely part of his thinking, but it's also extended past just his daughter to the entire island, and all of his people, and he's also ignoring all the signs that he actually does have to move on from this island, though. Because all the coconuts are dead, there's no fish in the ocean, like, climate change is happening. Like,
so you're saying he's a climate change denier, basically. You are calling the chief a...
He's basically, he's blinding himself to... He's like letting his grief overshadow the fact that he needs to plan for the future and actually protect his people, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, grief can do that, so...
Yeah, and obviously, I don't actually... How old is Moana in this?
I don't know, but at some point Maui calls her 8, and that's...
That's wrong, obviously.
That's wrong, but I think that's, like, funny because it's so obviously not correct.
Well, she might seem 8 to him because he's literally thousands of years old,
yes.
You know?
Yes.
Moana is 16.
Ben was like, wait, she's 8? And I'm like, no, she's not 8. Yeah, I do like that they did not try to pigeonhole them into, like, a romance, though.
Oh god, thank goodness. That would have been really creepy.
That's awkward.
Yes, It would have been very creepy because she's 16 and he's 1,000, but that is something that, like, Disney previously has not given a crap about.
When did that happen?
I mean, every single Disney princess is, like, between ages 14 and 17.
Oh, I thought you meant with, like, an older man. Actually, I just watched
They are all older men. They're not 1,000, but they're all in their, like, 20s.
Yep.
There's a lot to say about the way the dynamic of age happens within these Disney movies, because they're based...
And I'm saying I like that they did not do that with Moana and Maui, and I was a little bit anxious watching it that they were going to. So I was really happy that they didn't. Yeah,
I never got the feeling that they would, because that would have been creepy, but I'm glad they didn't. And, like, going back to Moana, it's interesting because I think Moana is a very relatable character, as a lot of, I think, Disney princesses can be, in that she values her own individualism over, like, the word or the, like, ideas of her father, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's the whole duty versus self, or duty over self, right, where she puts self over, like, duty, because she realizes that what she's doing kind of would be better for her community. At the
same time, it's not just about, now that I think about it, it's not just about individualism, because she still cares very much about the people, but she doesn't think that her father's way is the right way.
Well, so Well, it's interesting because her prioritizing her individualism is actually what is best for her community. Like, she goes on a whole journey to return that heart to Te Fiti, and that is what saves her community.
Now that I think about it, maybe her dad is the one who values individualism over family and community, because he's the one who ends up making the wrong decision for his community because of his own...
Yeah, Moana is willing to die to get that heart back.
Right.
To, like, save all the islands.
Yeah.
Like, what she says to, like, Maui is, like, my island is dying. I have to do this. Like, this is what will save them.
And, like, part of it is that she also just really wants to be in the water, you know?
Sure.
Like,
yep.
But it just coincides with...
Yes, exactly.
with also saving her people.
She's always had a drawn to the water, mostly because, I mean, who doesn't love the ocean? But also the
not
ocean...
me.
What's wrong with you? I love the ocean. But the ocean also chose her as a child.
I am hey when he popped his head out and was like, oh my fucking god, I'm in the middle of the ocean, and starts screaming. That's me.
Then why do you let me take you to the beach? You don't like
the beach is on the fucking land. I can look at the ocean. I don't need to be in it.
Maybe she just really likes being your friend. She wants to be by
that too.
Thank you. I like it.
And she knows you're a mermaid, so she has to be like...
Be there.
Sorry, what were you saying, Arkeida?
I lost my train of thought. It's okay.
Sorry. So her desire ends up honoring the history of her people, which is nice for her. It's convenient, isn't it? But it's kind of like it's a bit of like a destiny, like...
It is a destiny. The ocean chooses her. It's like her fate.
Yeah.
Is this actually like even a decision that she's making, or is it just her fate?
Well, I think for one, the water chooses her because the water cannot tell the future, but...
Can it?
Well, I feel like it's a spirit, and it senses like a good aura, so like...
Right. She knows that she will understand Te Fiti and Teka when the time comes. And she will be empathetic.
Yeah, clearly the water chooses the most empathetic person, because like she's like saving that turtle and stuff.
Right, exactly.
So it's like, okay, you're who will like be able to see the truth.
Yeah, and like that kind of story resonates with people because obviously like people like me.
And me.
Yeah, because I'm a classy rebel, and and I did not want to listen to my parents ever, because honestly, they're wrong. I'm biased, but they're wrong. You know? They don't know. Yeah, they don't know everything. They really don't. Especially when times are changing.
Yeah, like we were talking about it during our discussion before the movie, and like a critique that I have heard from like Polynesian people is that it kind of, I guess like the worry about the movie is that it kind of demonizes like the basic tasks that these societies need to do to function.
What do you mean?
Because like the whole like romanticizing the romanticizing of like the voyaging instead of staying on the island.
Yes, like all the jobs that everyone had on the island essentially is what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like you need those jobs still.
Mm-hmm. There are roles for a reason, and like a lot of times these islanders are actually like fine and happy with these roles. But the movie is kind of like, and no one leaves, which is kind of like, oh shit, I'm trapped.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think that's a valid criticism, but I also
I know personally, like, you know, I moved out when I was 18 years old, and I was like, okay, voyaging away. But I also am like I grew up in like suburbia, so it's like a little bit different than growing up on a beautiful island.
And but like also there's like the movie creates a reason for them to leave. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like they're happy in their roles, but they can't actually do those roles when there's no fish and coconuts, like I said before.
Right.
That kind of makes me think about an article that we were reading beforehand with Polynesians, where they said basically that I think that people seeing this movie should know that our culture is alive and well. This is not a dying culture. It is a thriving one that still finds ways to voyage and innovate in modern day America. So, so it's like, yeah, the movie creates a reason for her to leave, but in an actual culture like that it's not dying.
Right. And also it should be noted that they do like a mixture of cultures in this movie.
Yeah, it's like a mashup.
Yeah.
And like part of it is also that like who knows what the culture was like 1,000 years ago? Probably historians. But like, well,
I don't think this was 1,000 years ago. I think Taka.
Okay, here's another question. When did this movie take place?
I think this movie is like, oh, you know what? Actually, I don't know, because I guess they're showing
pre-colonization. No white people. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Continue what you're saying. We're doing a lot of theorizing here.
So basically, it's a mix. They mix a bunch of Polynesian cultures, but there's distinct cultures like Samoan, Hawaiian, Tonga, Native New Zealand. So there are different cultures that are mixed up in this movie that aren't all the same.
A lot of the cultures also tend to overlap in some instances, like the beliefs and religions, and sometimes like the gods or goddesses or the deities that they do worship. Like I'm Jamaican, which is also an island culture, but also has been colonized by the white peoples, and and we in Jamaican culture we have a lot of overlap with some of the beliefs that we have with countries like Bahamas or Barbados or Bermuda.
Yeah, so
I did want to say, like, one of the things that resonated with me when I watched this movie, and I think mostly it's because I grew up with I grew up in an immigrant family, and I'm a first-generation American, is, like, the cultural pressure you feel to study and get this, like, job and dutiful career to help your family, as opposed to, like, wanting to go off and do the thing that you feel is best for you and will make you happy and what you want to do. And it's one of those, like, it's so hard to explain it, but it was, like, a year ago or 2 years ago was the first time I heard, like, my grandmother say she's proud of me, or, like, you hear it from your parents. And it's because growing up, they expected me to, like, go into medicine and become this person and grow up and get this job and have this career to help take care of the family. And it's like, yes, I want to take care of the family. Yes, I want to help out in the best way possible, but that's not the path that I want to choose. And here I am now with the art degree, working in fashion in the career field that I wanted, because I, like Moana, had to, like, voyage away and chase after my dreams and, like, work hard for years to get what I want. And, like, I think that's what resonated the most with me, is, like, she's able to do this. So I feel like you should also be free to explore the options that you want and not feel that you're pressured into this job or societal role based on what your family's expecting of you. Like, yes, it's important to help family, but at the same time, you can't live your life for your family. Which is, I feel, how Moana also feels in this film.
And, like, I like that her grandma encourages that.
Yes.
Yeah, her grandma is basically the only one she feels like understands her. And I guess her grandma also feels like Moana's the only one who understands her back.
Right, yeah, that's true.
Everyone else thinks she's the village crazy lady. Which she kind of is fine with being.
She is cool with it. She's like, let them think what they want, because she knows who she is.
Yeah, she's like dancing with a bunch of stingrays, which is
very cool. And obviously she, like, passes away, which is heartbreaking, but she stays with her as a I can't say this word, a makua, which in Hawaiian mythology is a family god, and she, like, comes back as a stingray, which is, like,
it's her tattoo.
Yep, it is her tattoo because she chose the right one. To, like, guide her, you know? And that's a belief in Hawaiian culture that I've read that Hawaiians have appreciated about this movie.
Yeah, and, like, I love that, you know, like, in that scene in the, you know, the I Am Arkeida song, Yeah, so in that scene when she meets her on the boat, I think it's really great that she basically lets her know it's okay to give up. Because usually we don't see that. Usually, I guess, like, in movies and in life even, like, those who are supposed to be supporting us are usually forcing us to keep going. Even when sometimes there are situations in life that are just, like, too demanding or, like, almost impossible. And, like, it needs to be shown more that it's okay to give up sometimes. It's okay, and the people who love us will continue supporting us, even if that is our decision to quit.
Yeah, I think there should be more examples of failure and your family supporting you regardless.
Yeah, her grandma is basically like, it's okay to fail. Like she says, like, that she shouldn't have put so much of a burden on Moana, right. And it's okay if she wants to quit. She'll be with her, and she will show her the way back home.
Mm-hmm.
She'll be there the whole time with her. And then Moana, I think Moana decides to go on because of those words. She was hearing what Moana was saying. Moana was saying, I need to quit. And she was saying that is okay. She wasn't doing sympathy, which would her be basically being like, no, you can do this. You can do this. I believe in you.
Right.
Like,
right.
That's nice, but that's not what Moana needed to hear right then.
Yeah. Something I really liked was that she kept repeating, I am Moana of Matanui. You will board my boat and sail across the sea and restore the heart of Te Fiti. Because, one, it's such an anxiety thing to repeat what you want to say before you say it. Like, I'm like, that is so relatable.
Yeah.
And also, I like that because it's also a reminder of who she is, what her mission is, and I like that.
I am Moana is her mantra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's also, isn't it the last thing her grandma says to her? Like, she tells her to grab Maui.
Yeah, grab him by the ear and tell him. Yeah, that scene. Yeah,
so it probably gives her, like, reassurance to say that over and over and over again to herself.
Right. Moana. I also love it's just so fun to say. I also love how she's like smart and like she knows how to use people's egos against them.
Yeah.
Especially Maui and Tamatoa.
I feel like Maui's tattoos are working against him. I mean, they clearly know what's best for him, but they they're working against what he wants. They're teamed up with Moana.
It's such a creative way to show the angel on his shoulder, basically.
Yeah.
Because he is his own devil on his shoulder.
Yeah. That whole song that he sings about himself and how great he is.
That is actually my least favorite song because it annoys me so much.
Oh my god. I love it so much. But it's so funny how it showcases like his ego and Tamateo's ego, and then with Shiny.
Yeah.
Like the line the line where he says, "For just like you, I made myself a work of art. I'll never hide. I can't. I'm too shiny." Is like maybe my favorite line in the whole movie. It's just like radical self-love. It's just like, no, I'm pretty fucking great. Like, I'm so great. Like, I'm not even gonna bother trying to hide. Like, I am literal gold.
Everyone deserves to see me.
Yeah, it's so good. I wish everyone could be like that. Or could feel like that.
And I was reading about how Tamatoa is a name of legends and represents like tough heroes, and some people didn't like that it was some weird crab. But
he was really silly.
Yeah.
I mean, typical Disney.
Let's talk about Maui a little bit more because he has. At first, I saw him as a villain. I was like, wait a second. He's the one who fucking did all of this.
Right.
He, like, ruined the land and stole the heart of Te Fiti. And obviously, once, like, the dad, it doesn't justify his actions, but the reason why he does that is because he wants the love of his people.
Right. Impact versus intent.
Right.
Exactly.
And I feel as though his entire self-worth especially him being a demigod, is based on the love of the people that he's there to support. So if they don't love him, it's kind of, in my head, I'm like, is it like Tinkerbell, where if you don't believe in fairies, you despair?
Oh, that's real sad.
Sorry.
Yeah, and Moana definitely uses that to her advantage.
Yep. But, like, she kind of needs to make him do what's right.
Yeah. I mean, it's forever traumatizing to be a baby that gets abandoned.
Yeah. And it's like he's lived with that his entire life, because the only reason he became a god is because his parents... I still am trying to understand, like, the reasoning behind his parents wanting to drown him. They said they took one look at him and tossed him into the sea, so I'm assuming that he was disfigured of some sort. I just assumed
they didn't want children.
That could have been it too.
I don't know. I mean, because he said that they took one look at him, which makes it sound like it was something about him. But then again, maybe that's just him, like, feeling, like feeling guilty somehow for something there's no way he could be guilty for.
Right. It's my fault, not their fault.
Right. Yes. Which would definitely make sense for why he has to constantly try to impress and do things for humans.
Yeah. He was a baby. He didn't know whether his parents looked at him or not.
You don't know that he's a demigod now.
Well, now he is.
Look back.
But he gets retroactive memory from becoming a demigod? Is that how that works?
I mean, time? I don't know.
Don't throw your kids in the sea. Just get an abortion. That's what I'm going to say.
Oh my god. I read an article that was like, Moana has a secret pro-life message. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Where? It
was just a stupid article. Which was funny, because I was like, this is a totally pro-choice movie. But then again, most people just see what they want to see, I guess.
I guess I can see what...
Why?
I can see it. I see it. Because the whole reasoning behind pro-life, their whole reasoning behind it is like, yeah, it's a baby... It's a fetus, it's a child, you shouldn't kill it. But at the same time, they're always like, that baby could cure cancer. Who knows what that baby would grow up to do?
That baby could become a demigod.
Yes, exactly. And I'm like, yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
You know how many kids are in the foster care system?
Exactly. Yeah, kid could become it. But if this child is an unwanted child, who's to say they're going to end up in a loving, caring home that's both supportive, that has a good education system for them, so they can grow up to be these great things that you're already putting these like fake titles on them already. They are not even human yet.
I'm just gonna say this: there is no fetus that you might be having and then potentially throwing into the sea that is going to become a demigod. So, yeah, Jenny, I know you want us to get back to Moana, so let's get back to Moana.
So yes, Moani.
Like I'm sorry, but like your like Catholic Protestant faith doesn't even believe in demigods. So anyway, go. Sorry, back to it.
The metaphor is getting super mixed up in my head. I don't even know what's going on anymore. And I'm glad that in the end he apologizes for what he did, right?
Yes,
because he fucked up.
Oh yes,
he really did.
Yeah, he didn't say I'm sorry you were offended.
I guess he took ownership. He's like, I'm sorry, I did this.
Right, I have no excuse. Right, there's no excuse.
Yeah,
he said it. He doesn't use his upbringing as an excuse.
Right, which I feel like so many people end up doing when they find themselves in a very difficult situation, and it's in some instances, yes, I can understand it, but in others, it's like, if you're a grown-ass adult, then you should take ownership for the actions that you've caused to hurt other people, because it's your responsibility to fix said problems.
So I view the taking of Te Fiti's heart as basically a traumatic event.
Oh, absolutely.
And being that it is done by Maui, I think that it's fair to say that it is something that goes against the agency of gendered women's bodies.
Right.
In this movie. So you talking about Maui kind of unintentionally doing this and then apologizing, like learning this lesson or whatever, has me thinking, like, I almost wonder if this could be kind of like a lesson on why it is important to teach men consent. Well, teach anyone consent. But, like, we have done such a bad job teaching consent that, like, a lot of the time, like, this might be an unpopular opinion, but, like, a lot of men don't even realize necessarily certain things that they are doing go against consent. I'm not saying everything by any means, but I'm just saying that, like, in his head, he took that heart to help out other humans.
Right.
But what happened was it caused such deep trauma to her that it basically turned, in the eyes of society, it turned her into someone else. It turned her into, like, a demon of, like, fire and destruction.
Right.
In actuality, it is still Te Fiti. It is just Te Fiti who, like, has gone through this traumatic event, and she is now lashing out to make sure, like, no one can get that close to her again, to ever have something like that happen to her again, which is, like, a very realistic thing, especially for, like, rape victims, or just anyone who's, like, consent is violated in any way. And I'm kind of, like, drawing the parallel of, like, if we were taught better consent, maybe Maui would have realized, oh no, that is not a thing I should do.
Right.
I have a lot of things to say about this.
Okay.
Say them.
Okay. So I did some more reading, and I have seen a couple people, like, talk about how that him stealing the heart of Te Fiti resonated with them because they saw it as sexual assault, basically, and they compared it to their own sexual assault. And I've read another article that got me so mad because it was a stupid student who was like, there was a lecture about rape and Moana, and they were like, this movie is not about rape. And I'm like, just because it's not about rape to you doesn't mean it isn't to somebody else. And it obviously is, because I've read multiple articles about it. So multiple people felt the same way.
You know how, like, people ask you, like, oh, well, who's the character from any movie that you relate to the most? My answer for that is Te Fiti Te Kā. Because, to me, like, she is almost like an exact personification of someone with, like, borderline. Like, she... I don't know. It's so incredible to watch someone who's, like, so demonized for, like, when they are one way, but so, like, loved when they are another way that is deemed okay by society. And it's just, like, because almost no one can have empathy for this person. Like, when, like, my anxiety for most of my life has caused me to react in such a, like, short-tempered, like, lashing out way like that. And I didn't start talking to people about my rapes until maybe a couple years ago, because I wanted people to be able to understand why I was so, like, I didn't want people to touch me. I was like I said, I was short-tempered. Like, that's why I started talking about it, because I wanted people to understand that side of my personality, like the Te Kā side of my personality.
Yeah, like you said, Te Kā is like a direct result of the violation, and her change is exactly how people do change after such a traumatic event.
Yeah, she's literally just shielding herself.
Yeah.
Like Moana says, like, oh, we have to get around in order to get to the island, because, like, she can't, because, like, she's not letting us get through. Like, it's fucking literal. Like, it's not even, whatever. Anyway, keep saying what you were saying.
Like you said, like, Maui doesn't realize, he's not cognizant of the repercussions of his actions, and that's just kind of that's also common in our culture of men being unable to read women's literal body language.
Yeah, and, like, in my opinion, it's because, like, as a society, we have failed to teach consent.
It's not even necessarily teaching consent, it's just teaching women how to not be raped when that's not how things work.
Right.
Yeah, sure. That's another, that's like what we teach. Instead of teaching consent, that is what we teach. But, I obviously, like, there are men who their consent is violated and who are raped as well. And, like, they don't know what to do because they're taught men can't even be raped. Like,
Right.
it's just the whole, there needs to be an entire change to the education system to be teaching these things. And I really value and love the fact that Moana went there with this movie. And I hope that children are able to, like, maybe if they don't fully understand that that's what that's about, at least they can, like, understand, like, the empathy aspect of it.
Yes.
Like, that Moana's like, oh, they've stolen the heart from inside you, but this does not define you. So good. Like, that it's just, like, that line makes me so emotional.
I have cried every time I've seen that scene.
Yeah, it's the best song. It's so good.
And I love that it teaches us that empathy instead of force is the way to solve problems and resolve conflict. You know? I love this movie because that is a lesson that like affects me so much. And I am so glad that children are also learning that lesson.
Yeah, definitely. This movie is so good.
It's really good.
I'm really glad that, like, this generation of kids is getting some, like, much better movies like this and Coco. And, like...
Yeah.
I mean, I loved the movies when I was a kid, but looking back on them...
looking back on them, you get a better appreciation for what the movies that we're getting now. They're getting better and they're learning from the mistakes of the past. Yes, they are still making mistakes, but who's to say in the next generation they won't, like, course correct and figure that out.
These movies are more nuanced in their like characterization of people, their display of culture. Like, that's the way in which they are better, you know?
Right.
And, like, when I was watching a movie, I was like, do women become chiefs in this culture? And they don't.
I also was thinking that. And I was like...
They changed that.
Yeah. Oh, also good question, Arkeida. You said in which culture?
Which one? Because you said it's in several, but I'm like...
Well, Tongan culture was the one that I know that women don't become chiefs. But I'm sure... But, like... Based on our patriarchal history, probably all of them.
So then, like,
I feel like a lot of other non-Western civilizations tended to have more, I don't know if they were chiefs, but they also had women leaders within their community. And I know that there are some Native American cultures that do run a matriarch society. So
yeah.
From what I read, like, the women were the most important in the tribes, but the men were the chiefs. Or you had to be a man to be a chief.
There are some lineages where it's like, if you're going to claim to be of X descent, that means it comes from your mother's side, not your father's side.
But do you know which cultures, like Native American ones?
I read this years ago. Like, it was like, I had to do research on something and it was years ago and I don't remember which one. But I do know that they are better revered in cultures that are not super westernized.
Right.
I don't want to talk down on any cultures, but maybe it's a good thing that Moana's the chief. Or becomes the chief.
And I think that it's nice because you don't... I'm going to say this in speaking to the clusterfuck that was Pocahontas.
Oh, dear God. I still haven't made a That's one of the only Disney dresses I have never made. And I'm like, I don't think I will ever make a Pocahontas dress. I'm pretty sure I just won't do it.
Yes, I know that I don't even know. Never mind. But I do know, like, in that society, it's like her grandmother was super important but like, no one listens to Pocahontas. Nobody really is listening to the woman in the society in this specific, really bad portrayal of this movie.
They should have never adapted that quote-unquote source material, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. The real story of Pocahontas is actually very, 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 very tragic. That should never have been a movie. And romanticized.
Yeah.
Yeah, and being that it's almost Thanksgiving, please, if you are having dinner with your family and they are saying racist things, especially if you are white, it is very important that you are talking to them about the things that they are saying. It is it's okay to feel uncomfortable. It is okay to make other people uncomfortable if what they are saying is harmful to other people.
Had someone come on my Facebook post, my whole Facebook post, and tell me when I said something about racist white people. And he was like, well, how am I supposed to have dinner and talk to my family if they act like this? Why don't you tell me how I should respond? And I was like, motherfucker, Google exists. The whole entirety of Google exists.
If your family member says something racist, please ask them not to and tell them why that's not okay.
If you are in a comfortable enough position to do that, though.
I don't agree with that. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, if you are relying on them for money or whatever, if you're not in a position of power compared to them, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You know what? I'm going to say I haven't had to depend on my parents for anything since I've been 18, so I will say I don't know what other people have to go through.
Okay.
It's always uncomfortable to talk about this and to call somebody out, especially if it's somebody. I feel as though if it is someone that you care about, then you definitely have that responsibility to educate them and make sure that they're understanding that what they're saying and doing is racist and wrong. Because if it was some Jane from the street, I would be like, girl, hope you get hit by a car and bye.
Okay, is there anything else we want to say about Moana?
Hey, is the best!
No, I like the little piggy.
How do I say his last name? Alan Tudyk?
Tudyk.
He plays so many
Is that
birds. He has a specific brand now. I'm like, you need someone to play a bird on anything, just call Alan Tudyk, because that's just what he's good at.
I don't know. John Oliver as Zazu in Lion King was genius.
Yeah, I need to still watch that.
Thank you so much for listening.
Please take a moment to subscribe, review, and rate us. It's the easiest way to help support our podcast.
This week's review comes from Ben, my husband. This podcast feels he's our biggest fan. Just so you know, fight him or don't fight him. This podcast fills such an important need for the nerd community. I can't wait for more. Do an episode on representation of mental illness in comics. Doom Patrol, anyone?
Yeah.
Doom Patrol is actually the first comic book Ben ever lent me years before we were dating, and it made me fall in love with him.
Oh, that's sweet. We should do it then.
I support it. If you want to chat with us about the episode, our social medias are Fandom and Wellness on Instagram,
Fandom and Wellness on Facebook,
and Fandom Wellness on Twitter.
You can also find me at Classy Rebel Design,
me at The Box of Shadows,
and me at Little Petal, all on Instagram.
And if you want bonus content, you can join our fandom family at patreon.com/fandomandwellness for Patreon-exclusive geek sessions.
And remember, be kind, and take no shit, and shut down racists.
Yeah, bitches.